Welcome, everyone.
Are you stuck in a pattern?
I'm stuck in a pattern. Welcome to stop repeating the same patterns over and over and over again, especially those that don't serve you. My name is Rick from thrivingnow.com. I'm here with Cathy Vartuli from the Intimacy Dojo and Thriving Now. Hi, Cathy.
Hey, Rick. Hey, everyone. I'm really excited you're here because I think so many humans have patterns that they repeat over and over their entire lives. And some of them never even realize it. It's kind of like that fish in water where it's like, oh, this is what is. And they never realize they could have freedom. So just the fact that you accepted Rick's and my invitation to be here means that you're willing to look at some of these things. And I think when we realize we have a pattern and go through the steps that Rick outlined in the email, do some tapping, all of a sudden we can step outside the pattern and we get freedom for our lives. We get choice. Free will does exist, but part of free will, I think the biggest part is realizing where we can say yes and no, or versus where we're kind of stuck in a loop. And we get all the energy back in our lives. We can create so many amazing things and so many amazing experiences. And my biggest thing is I want no one to wake up when they're 80, 90, or 100 and go, oh my God, where did my life go? Like, I thought it was going to start at some point and never did. And I think these loops prevent people from living the vibrant, amazing lives they want to have. So I'm really excited that you're here.
Yeah, and the loop that we're talking about, I mean, we're pattern machines. Humans are pattern machines. The words that I'm using are patterns that were established in my brain and my muscles. There's a muscle memory for how to make these words, and I don't have to sound them out and try to get myself to say them clearly. I know which words go together. These are patterns. And so the
And they're
movement of my
useful.
hands, and they're really useful. And so the thing we're first acknowledging is that we're pattern machines. The patterns work for us. And then there are patterns that, like Cathy said, that end up feeling like we're repeating something in a way that isn't interesting. It isn't serving our long-term best interest. And it may keep us feeling like we're in that rut. You know, there's the ruts. I remember visiting areas of Italy where the Roman chariots and wagons had worn ruts into the stone. And if you weren't riding in that rut, then you ran the risk of cracking the wheel when it fell into the rut. And so as a metaphor, we get into things that our brain has done thousands, millions of times. And there is a resistance. And also, like those wagon wheels, once they were in the rut, getting them out was extremely difficult. And there's a part of our brain that likes ruts because ruts allow us to kind of be on the track. We know what we're doing. Oh, I feel a certain way. When I feel a certain way, there are chips, and I get the chips. And once I have the chips, I sit here on the sofa. And once I'm sitting here on the sofa, I grab the remote control. And when I grab the remote control, I turn on the TV. And then I'm in a pattern. And that pattern started from a certain state of being, and it led to a reaction that I know a lot of people are noticing, that there are patterns in their behavior, whether it's daily patterns, and sometimes it's patterns in relationship or longer term patterns around a dream that we have, that it rises and then it falls back down. And so, yeah.
I think that a lot of times we just aren't even aware of the patterns, but I think our energy is aware. And I know that when I'm stuck in a pattern, I've learned to recognize that there's a certain energy I have. There's like a wanting to break free, kind of feeling a little bit bored and trapped in my life when it's starting to like really suck a lot of energy from my life. And I've learned that pattern. Like I have a pattern of that's a signal to me that I need to pay attention and look and see where I might be just repeating the same thing over and over again because it's easier. And sometimes it's against everything I believed. Like I really felt like I'd worked through most of my anger in my life. Like I'm not a generally an angry person. And I was talking with someone the other day, and I realized that I do have some anger at one particular person I need to work through, and that rather than dealing with it, I was eating in the evening. Like I was like turning to junk food. But I've been doing it so like for a while, so it like it really kind of crept in and just stayed there. And I was like, I really am not eating as well as I wanted to do, and it's gotten kind of worse. Like because if we have something we're trying to tamp down, we sometimes need to add more and more rocks on top of it to keep it down over time. Like our systems naturally want to heal. They naturally want to release things. And so like if we're like we have this thing down there like this anger, and maybe a little anger more gets added in, and it's like trying to break free. Our system is trying to break it free so we can process it and let it go. Mm-hmm. But when we don't, we have to just keep piling on more and more. And I think that's when patterns can get really destructive. People that turn to, like if you're doing things that you don't want to do for your life, like we're not judging what people do. Like if you choose to have drinks with dinner, that's great. Enjoy them. If you're having dessert with dinner, wonderful. Enjoy them. But are you doing it because you choose to, or because there's something you're desperately trying to keep in the closet, or because there's those ruts? The ruts have gotten so deep in the wagon wheels that getting out of them feels almost like it feels like you'll break the wheels or your ankle if you try to get out. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah. So in this process, we're going to touch on 4 areas. This is about human life, so there's a lot of other aspects we're not going to touch on. But I have found that for me, if there is a pattern that this sequence works to get energy moving. There's a lot of other aspects of it which can be around maintaining and building a new pattern that serves you. But today we would like to focus on like the stop of the repeating, particularly the stop of the unconscious, how did I end up eating the whole thing?
The chips are all gone.
The chips are all gone. How did that happen?
Start with some tapping just to let us like ground and recognize when we're in a pattern.
Yes.
Because I think that
part of that is the step 1 is around accepting that we have patterns, and that there's parts of you that are saying, hey, we survived. We're here. So the pattern didn't kill us.
So don't do anything else. Stick with it.
There's a resistance. There's a resistance that is a bit like it's concretized in all of us around patterns that haven't killed us, and that were actually, especially if they were established to help us cope and to get through times where, expressing anger might have been really dangerous.
Dangerous, very dangerous. And that reminds me of the study. I don't know if I know I mentioned it a couple of times before in other calls, but they did this study of rats, and they found that rats that were traumatized would always stick to the same pattern. They didn't want to deviate, and they were very, very scared. So if they put a cat in the rat's environment, and they had places to hide and everything, the rats would never come out, even when the cat was not. They would just hide. They'd freeze. And I think there's a certain freeze aspect in unhealthy patterns. In healthy patterns, I feel like we often made a choice to accept it. But the rats that had not been traumatized or had healed were willing to play and explore. They were willing to step outside of what they knew, and they thrived a lot more. And I think that when we can just kind of look and go, oh, maybe it is safe to try not eating chips with dinner. What if I had cucumber slices with hummus? Or, just like, it doesn't mean that we have to give up having that yummy snack, but maybe we can choose rather than making a hand automatically reaches TV like, what is it I actually want to create tonight? And if it's chips and TV, that's fabulous. Like, do it, but make it a choice rather than the wagon wheels making another level deeper rut in the concrete, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So
that's such an important point. Thank you for bringing it up. That aspect of like that our traumas lock in, freeze in certain patterns for us that can feel the hardest to clear. And that's where tapping right in the acknowledgement stage is so important. Would you lead us in that?
I would love to. I would love to. I think this is really dear to me because we all have people that we see that are traumatized and we're like, why are they repeating that pattern? It really hurts them and it hurts the people around them. My mom does this. She so wants to do a good job that she's like constantly kind of control people and steer people. And it never feels like there's any presence with her. It's like your marionette's having to do what she wants so that she can feel safe. And if you don't follow the pattern she has in her head, the script she has in her head, there's no way for us to interact. She gets very upset because she's afraid. There's an old trauma there somewhere. And it's so sad because I really want to have that deep connection. Like I feel like I could connect with each of you more deeply than my mom will let me close. And so I really love the fact that you're willing to look at that. So if you can, just give yourself a little appreciation for the fact that you're here and you're curious. I really honor that. That is a beautiful, beautiful gift to bring to the world and to those around you. So if you can, just let your heart feel that, wow, I'm doing a really beautiful thing right now. I am changing the way I interact with the world and with other people, and I'm giving them a gift that most people, they're just long for their whole lives. So if you'd like to take a nice, slow, deep breath. And if you want to just let that appreciation kind of grow and warm up, that's a beautiful way to open things up. When we're in appreciation, we're often not in trauma. We feel pretty safe. We feel abundant. Feel your feet on the floor if you can. Feel how grounded and supported you are. I love letting the energy from the bottom of my feet kind of grow into the earth. I'm a very earthy person. But just like I imagine these like roots growing in and letting myself be so grounded. And my butt in the chair, you're supported by the universe right now. Another nice, slow, deep breath. Karate chop. Hey, universe.
Hey, universe.
I've got a lot of really good patterns here.
Got a lot of really good patterns here.
And I really appreciate that.
And I really appreciate that.
It makes life a lot easier.
It makes life a lot easier. Oop,
and that's wonderful.
Sorry. Hold on a second.
Yep.
Can you say something else?
Oh, yep. Can I say, I'm saying something?
Yeah, say it again.
Okay, and that makes life wonderful.
And that makes life wonderful.
Thank you for that.
Thank you for that.
And there are some patterns that are really not serving me.
And there are some patterns that are really not serving me.
Maybe they served me well at some point.
Maybe they served me well at some point.
And I can be really grateful for that.
And I can be really grateful for that.
But I don't need them now.
But I do not need them now.
Please help me notice them.
Please help me notice them.
Please draw my attention to them in a gentle, loving pace.
Please draw my attention to them in a gentle, loving pace.
And please let me be delighted by the insights.
And please let me be delighted by the insights.
Top of the head, sometimes it's really hard to see those patterns.
Sometimes it is really hard to see those patterns.
Eyebrow, if I see them, I'll probably want to change them.
If I see them, I'll probably want to change them.
Side of the eye, but I can do it a little at a time.
But I can do it a little bit at a time.
Under the eye, I can understand where they came from.
I can understand where they came from.
Under the nose, and why I want to change them.
And why I want to change them.
Chin, I'm really, really grateful that I have these insights.
I'm really, really grateful that I'm starting to get these insights.
Collarbone, and I can't wait for the freedom and new energy I'll have.
And I can't wait for the freedom and new energy I'll have.
Under the arm, and the ability to connect with people and life on a different way.
And the ability to connect with people and life in a different way.
Top of the head, thank you, universe, for all your help.
Thank you, universe, for all your help.
And for all my courage.
And for all my courage.
Nice deep breath. If you have anything coming to your mind right now, it's a great time to jot it down. The part of our brain that likes patterns is very efficient. Patterns are very efficient. Our system likes to be as low energy as possible. Patterns let us be low energy. I don't have to think about as I go to bed that I'm going to go to the restroom, wash my face, brush my teeth, put on my pajamas. It just happens. It flows. And that lets me focus on other things, or it's just very efficient. We get in a groove, so to speak. So there's part of our system that, especially like the survival part, it's like, oh, if we break patterns, we're expending energy. Can we really do this? And we're living in pretty safe worlds now. Most of us have more abundance than we would have had in caveman times. Like, we have the ability to like, oh, you know what? Even though that pattern is probably saving me a lot of energy, it's also taking a lot of energy too. And I want that freedom. So if you feel any resistance, just be with it. Just breathe into it. Maybe do a little tapping. And if you're noticing any ahas, jot them down, because the part of our brain that really likes those patterns, it's sneaky and it will slip in and you're like, oh, I've got it. I remember now. And it will erase it from the board. And then you'll be like, huh, what was that thing? Mine does it all the time anyway. And fingers pointing back at me. It goes in and erases it. I'm like, I really meant to do that thing. Where is it? And it's gone.
So I'd like to do just another round on acceptance. I think that anytime we're about to do something around patterns, it's helpful to do that.
Yeah.
Karate chop. Even though I have these patterns.
Even though I have these patterns.
I am so human.
I am so human.
And these patterns help me be efficient.
And these patterns help me be efficient.
And they've helped me to survive.
And they help me to survive.
I deeply and completely accept where I am and how I feel.
I deeply and completely accept where I am and how I feel.
Top of the head. And I've got some frustration.
I've got some frustration.
That might be a pattern.
And that might be a pattern.
Eyebrow. I might even have some shame about my patterns.
Oh, I might even have some shame about my patterns.
Side of the eye. And that shame might be a pattern.
And that shame might be a pattern.
Under the eye. I have patterns.
I have patterns.
On the nose. I'm a pattern. I'm good at patterns.
I'm very good at patterns.
Chin. And I also can change them.
And I also can change them.
Collarbone. I choose to identify something I'd like to shift.
I choose to identify something I choose to shift.
Under the arm. And accept where I am.
Accept where I am.
And head in a conscious new direction.
And head in a conscious new direction.
Sorry, I'm not sure about
And I tag onto you and just start tapping, because like when you said I can change my patterns, there's like karate chop part of me is like, no, I cannot.
No, I cannot.
I cannot change this pattern.
I cannot change this pattern.
Even though I cannot change this pattern.
Even though I cannot change this pattern.
Maybe it's okay to be aware of it.
Maybe it's okay to be aware of it.
I cannot change this pattern.
I cannot change this pattern.
I'm really stuck.
I'm really stuck.
And I'm holding on tight.
And I'm holding on tight.
Top of that, I am stuck.
I am stuck.
Eyebrow, I can't change this pattern.
I can't change this pattern.
Top of that, I've tried for years.
I have tried for years.
Under the eye, you have no idea how hard I worked.
You have no idea how hard I've worked.
Under the nose, it hurts to try to change again.
It hurts to try to change again.
Chin, I just hate myself.
I just hate myself.
Collarbone, I'm so frustrated.
I am so frustrated.
Under the arm, I feel powerless when I can't change these patterns.
I feel powerless when I can't change a pattern.
Top of the head, what if there are better ways to change patterns?
What if there are better ways to change patterns?
A part of me would like that.
A part of me would like that.
Side of the eye, and part of me is really doubtful.
And a part of me is really scared, feels...
Yeah. Under the eye, I don't know if I can do this.
I don't know that I can do this.
Under the nose, and every time I fail, it feels awful.
And every time I fail, it feels awful.
Chin, I don't want to fail again.
I don't want to fail again.
Collarbone, and I don't want to be stuck here either.
And I don't want to be stuck here either.
Under the arm, what if I celebrated really small changes?
What if I celebrated really small changes?
Top of the head, and notice that I was breaking out of patterns a little bit at a time.
And notice I was breaking out of patterns a little bit at a time.
That might work.
That might work.
Nice deep breath. And some of you may not be that stuck, but I know that there are areas of my life when I'm like, oh, I don't even want to look at that. No, it's not going to be good. So I think it's important to address the energy some people have around that.
Right, and I think that's one of the component pieces that emotional freedom work can bring to this process, because I've been told to set a goal and to just decide and maybe set up some external punishments and accountability. But if I have a pattern and it somehow has been important to me, then there is resistance. And so that's part of what we're acknowledging here. You're not broken. Resistance to changing patterns allows for stability. It allows for stability inside your own system. Mm-hmm. It allows for stability in your relating to the things in your world, and particularly with the people in our world. And that kind of stability our organism values. And we're fortunate to have the consciousness that can also go through steps. But we definitely, if these, and please feel free to share in the chat, if this was an issue for you as you felt it, whether it was fear about changing or a doubt or the pain of past trying to change things.
Yeah, the patterns are there for a reason. They, like for me, when I was a little child, there was a lot of abuse, and food was the one. I didn't have access to cocaine or alcohol or cigarettes or, the ways that I could escape that. Food was the only thing that was available to me. And our bodies actually they produce dopamine and serotonin based on what we're eating. So as a very small child, I was kind of a chemist figuring out what I needed to eat to kind of soothe myself. It was so smart. But it's still my go-to. Like if I'm feeling stressed, or I'm feeling angry, or if I'm feeling depleted or needing soothing, that's my brain still wants to go there. So there's still a pattern there. It actually does soothe me. It's really useful to have that as a backup, but I would rather not go to it as the first line of defense, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you want to move to our second topic, identifying those that serve us well and those that might be stuck?
Yeah, I think that's really useful. So if you're willing, and I just want to say that people feel like Kira, I may be saying your name wrong. I apologize. The pattern is mixed in survival. Don't feel it's dangerous. Exercise threatens that survival program for me. I totally relate. And there's actually, I don't know if you've read, you may have already seen this, but when we exercise, there's a biofeedback loop for people that have had a lot of trauma. Our heart rate goes up when we exercise. Our breath gets faster when we exercise, which, if we have associated those things with threats to our life, can trigger our survival brain. So there are lots of tapping we can do. There's lots we do have to feel in our body when we exercise to a certain extent. And we also have that biofeedback loop going. And tapping is the best thing I know of to help with that. So thanks for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
A nice deep breath. Curly top. I'm really afraid to even hope that anything can change.
I'm really afraid to even hope that anything can change.
Because it really hurts when I hope.
Because it really hurts when I hope.
Maybe I don't have to try to change anything right this minute.
Maybe I don't have to try to change anything right this minute.
I'm just asking to be aware of the patterns.
I'm just asking to be aware of the patterns.
When do these patterns serve me?
When did these patterns serve me?
And when are they kind of taking away from my life?
And when are they kind of taking away from my life now?
Top of the head. Wow, that's really complex.
Yeah, feels complex in my body, mind.
Eyebrows. Some of those are good patterns sometimes and bad patterns other times.
And some of them are good patterns sometimes and bad patterns others.
So what if my only goal is just to be aware to start out?
What if my only goal is to be aware as I start out?
Under the eye, just notice the patterns I have.
Notice the patterns I have.
Under the nose, accept them and appreciate that they help me at some time.
Appreciate and acknowledge, accept that they helped me at some times.
Chin, that still feels tough, but not quite so scary.
That still feels tough, but not quite so scary.
Collarbone, what if I just noticed which patterns serve me?
What if I just notice which patterns serve me
I'm in the arm and hung out with them like an old friend.
and hung out with them like an old friend?
Top of the head. Universe, would you help me with this?
Universe, would you help me with this?
I could really use a hand.
I could really use a hand and some support.
Nice, slow, deep breath.
So I want to acknowledge that if you're here, live or on the recording, you have a pattern of keep showing up for yourself enough that you're here.
Yeah.
You may be exhausted from that feeling of failure, and yet you showed up. You may have feel this real resistance in your body mind to changing a pattern, and yet you're still engaging. And to me, that's a pattern that identifying that how we show up for ourselves is a useful thing. It reminds it shifts into a bit of a different place, a place of possibility. So I know we're tapping on a bunch of things right here. One of those are the patterns that I'm sure that you're aware of that are like, wah, 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 I want to stop these, stop these, stop these, stop these. And if as part of this, there is also an awareness that, like your awareness of willingness to be vulnerable enough to even get to this place. Take a moment and this is where touching your body, maybe you're not used to touching your body with acknowledgement. Mm-hmm. They said, give yourself a pat on the back. Always found that a little uncomfortable.
It's hard.
I like getting pats on the back, but it's like this feeling of being in the heart space.
I really love the one where you hold the back of your head and the heart. To me, that's really connective and grounding. They do that in
Heart Math and Donna Eden and a number of other places. Yeah. So, yeah. So identifying a pattern, I think one of the things that's often, we look at the end point, like the bag of chips is empty and I feel sick to my stomach kind of end point. That's an end point. Or, instead of saying what I wanted to say, I shoved it down, and now I'm home and I don't feel good about myself. Got all these emotional dysregulation happening. There's the state of being that happens like at the start of the pattern, and that I encourage us to put some some attention to. How does that feel, Cathy? To look at something that, and if we can trace it back to before we're actually deep into the pattern.
I think that the biggest thing I've learned from myself is if I can slow it down and notice when the pattern is starting. That's when I have control. And I think that for me, the panic, especially when I was having, back when I was dealing with all the abuse stuff, if I could catch the pattern of the panic hitting, like I would go into primitive brain and I would just be lost in it. I would have flashbacks and things. When we can catch it in that moment, if we can slow things down enough so that we notice where we're going, that's the moment we get to choose. And sometimes when the ruts are really deep, we tend to go there very fast. Like it's like, boom, where all of a sudden we have the chips in our mouth and the TV's on and we're like, how did that happen? It's almost like a fugue state we go into to get there. And if we can slow it down and accept it, I think a big part of this is, someone said, I feel exhausted from failing. A lot of times people have a pattern about how to try to change their patterns. We have a pattern where we do the same thing over and over again, thinking if we try harder this time, it will be better. I'm going to willpower myself through. I'm going to sign up for all the things. I'm going to buy the books and read them all, pointing at myself. And then we're going to somehow get through it versus just like, okay, what if I just accepted I have a pattern here and appreciated that it did serve me at some point? What if I can bring some gentleness and love in there? And that will allow it. Like when we're fighting something really hard, it gives it a lot of energy. It's very, very hard to break a pattern when we're doing this. But if we say, hey, wow, pattern, you were there for a reason. Thank you for all you did, pattern. It takes, there's a little space between what we're doing and what we want to do that lets us decide, make a little bit of a choice. And I really think that a lot of people try to wrench the wheel, the tires out of the rut.
Yeah.
And it's like jarring, it's hard, and it feels bad to us versus like, oh, I'm in a rut. This rut served me. Look how many times it's taken me where I wanted to go. Thank you, rut. Thank you. And okay, for right now, for this minute, I'm going to pause. Like I really did. Like it was like I'm just going to choose to pause for 30 seconds and then I can let myself go down that same rut if I need to. Yeah. I'm going to pause for a minute. Like as I built up the muscles to not immediately knee jerk into something, if that makes sense.
And so I want to go to like, if you have a pattern that when you're out and emotions arise, you want to run back home. That's a primal pattern. You see that in a bunny, right? And they race for the burrow. That's in our primal energy system. And changing that is changing millions of years of evolution.
Yeah.
In like the anxiety or the feelings that come up when we're out and about, we can use tapping to strengthen those. That's less primal, more like in response to stimuli. And then there's this, the social nervous system, which I think a lot of the patterns that come to us as emotional freedom coaches is part of this social nervous system. So for example, when I've worked rarely with people with cigarette addiction, I'm not a specialist in that. But one of the things where we've found success in changing it is, okay, as you work your way back from you're out there and you're smoking a cigarette, and you can do that with, I've got the ice cream in my hands and I've already eaten 4 bites of it.
Yeah.
And you work your way back and you want to be looking at the physical and the emotional. But like the physical can be, what's alive in my physical space? I'm alone. I feel alone. That's the emotional. I am alone. I feel alone. It could be that you got people around and you feel alone. That's the physical and the emotional. And you work your way back to when did that really start? Like for some people, for cigarettes, they start feeling like they need connection. And they know that there are people out there in the smoking lounge and they go to have conversation around something that is bonding. Like if you're a cigarette smoker today, you are bonded in the amount of abuse that you get with other people who are smoking. And it's a bonding experience for a lot of the people that I've talked to. So that's the thing that you're starting to feel. Like if I have a particular challenge with scheduling, which is a fundamental part of being a professional, is to be able to schedule. Where it starts is that feeling like I'm starting to feel a little trapped in things to do. It's an emotional state. And that's where, if we're going to use tapping, if you jump to the end and how you feel, guilty, ashamed, like I'm a failure, if you're tapping at that point, it's a bit like if you jumped into the trauma right at the key point. Now, sometimes we can do that, but it's more likely if you're working on a trauma to start from before it started, before anything bad had happened. In the same way with potato chips. Okay, what were you feeling when you got home? I was so frustrated. Okay, yeah. So before you even walked in the house, there's already a very high level of arousal around frustration.
Yeah.
That type of thing. Did that make sense?
And I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think, Gene, if it's okay, you were talking about your panic makes you want to run home. When you feel panicky and you're out and your stomach goes wonky, what if instead of, like, I know you feel guilty about it, and we often feel very guilty and angry and frustrated when our patterns kick in. What if we acknowledge, like, hey, wow, my system is taking care of me really well. I am running home to my safe cave because I don't feel safe. Like, a lot of times, again, when I'm fighting it, there's no room to change it. If I stop fighting it and I go, oh, wow, pattern, that was really sweet of you to take care of me so well. Now there's a little bit of room to say, okay, I can run home, but do I want to wait a few seconds and just see if the panic subsides? I think that when we fight things, that's really hard to change them. And I think that's one of the main sources of failure that I see. Can we do a little tapping on that?
Yeah.
So nice deep breath. Karate chop. Even though I want to fight this pattern.
Even though I want to fight this pattern.
So frustrated with it.
I'm so frustrated with it.
It messes up everything.
It messes up everything.
And it takes so many things out of my life.
And it takes so many things out of my life.
Stupid pattern.
Stupid pattern.
I hate you.
I hate you.
I really hate you.
I really hate this pattern.
What if the pattern's actually trying to help me?
What if the pattern's actually trying to help me?
I don't want to admit that.
I don't want to admit that.
I'm really mad at it.
I'm really mad at it.
But maybe it's trying in a very awkward way to help me.
Maybe it's trying in a very awkward way to help me.
Top of the head, I still hate it.
I still hate it.
Eyebrow, but what if I could say thanks for trying, pattern?
Thanks for trying, pattern.
Side of the eye, I get that maybe you're trying to be good.
I get that maybe you're trying to be good.
Under the eye, even while you're annoying the fuck out of me.
Even while you're annoying the fuck out of me.
Under the nose, I hate you, pattern.
I hate you, pattern.
Chin, but thanks for trying to help.
Thanks for trying to help.
Collarbone, oh, what if I didn't fight you so hard?
What if I didn't what?
What if I didn't fight you so hard?
What if I didn't fight you so hard?
Under the arm, what if I could find something good about you?
What if I could find something good about you?
Top of the head, I don't want to.
I do not want to.
Eyebrow, but fighting you certainly hasn't worked.
Fighting you certainly hasn't worked.
Side of the eye, what if I could just accept that you're there for a reason?
What if I could accept that you're there for a reason?
Under the eye, you actually helped me for a long time.
You actually helped me for a long time.
Under the nose, so maybe I can accept you.
Maybe I can accept you.
Chin, and maybe I can appreciate that you're trying to save me.
I can appreciate that you're trying to save me from
Collarbone in the best way you know how.
best way you know how.
Under the arm, what if I could heal you, pattern?
What if I could heal you
Top of the head and help you transform into something new.
and help transform into something new?
Nice deep breath. I do think that often we get parts of ourselves stuck in these patterns, an old traumatic response. And there's almost like this energetic bubble, a younger self that's in there running this pattern to try to get us to be safe. And I think that's one of the reasons it's so hard, because we want to fight it and defeat it. And I don't think our systems are designed to throw any part of us away, our own inner being. I believe, the No Child Left Behind really didn't work for education, but I think it's really smart for us when we're healing. Yeah. Like, is there a part of me in that pattern? Is there a part of me that's like panicked and alone and scared, and every time I yell at it, it feels like another beat up child, and that just adds to it, versus like, hey honey, I get you're really scared. Look at us. We're going back to the house. It's safe. We're going to take care of ourselves the way we know how. And let's just do a little tapping when we do it. We're not going to fight the pattern. We're just going to acknowledge it, do a little tapping. help them heal and relax a little bit. And then I think often we just have more room to see the pattern and change how we interact.
I think what we've done here is do something that's very natural when you're shifting it using this tool and skill of tapping. We started with some acceptance, and then we started identifying something. And as the energy came up, and we're in a group together, you may have also picked up the energy of other people feeling activated in their frustrations and panics and fed upness. And what we did is what did we do? We go back to acceptance. And Cathy's making this point over and over again because it's that important, that which we're really resisting and fighting is part of the persistence of a pattern. The persistence pattern is the grinding resistance that it activates. And there's a perverse way that keeps us in it and also gives it energy because it thinks it's really important. And if this is where you are, then that's your cycle. Accept yourself, identify a pattern, feel the resistance, and then come back to acceptance. And then let's take a moment and breathe. Because nervous system wise and brain pattern wise, I think a lot of times when we're trying to shift a pattern, we don't give ourselves a moment to integrate. And a moment can be a day or two, a chance for our body to feel a bit more of the acceptance. Like a part of me is feeling the time pressure to drive forward, to get through the other points. And I get that. I mean, there's an impatience that comes with identifying something that we want to shift, especially if it's been identified in our face over and over again. If you have a pattern that you've really been aware of and it's in your face and it's been that way for decades, then it's there for a very powerful reason that keeps you safe on some level. And I think that's part of the blocks, is that if you've ever been around a 3-year-old and they like to play with knives, you're going to put a lot of energy into making sure that they don't have access to knives, that when they get a knife in their hand, you get it away from them. You're trying to keep them safe. And there's no world at which you say, hey, it's okay for my 3-year-old to be playing with real knives. There just isn't.
Yeah.
And a part of us that might be really treating something like it's a knife still, from trauma in particular, the gap that Cathy was talking about by infusing some acceptance into this pattern and opening up a little bit more curiosity of how might this be keeping me safe? How might it have helped me? And people can think of something like, it's useless. I have never, ever, ever in thousands of sessions seen a pattern that was not grounded in something smart and survival. And maybe that's one of my superpowers, is that, what about eating chips? How is that? Well, they're calories and fat. From a primal standpoint, if you're under stress, if you feel like you're an outcast, even for an instant, you need to grab as much food. You see it on the nature movies. There's an intelligence in that. 2, it's tasty. It's crunchy. It fills your ears with crunchy sounds instead of I'm all alone. I'm all of the silence that's around you. You're crunching. That's really intelligent if you can't handle the silence of being alone. And I'm tapping because there have been times in my life where this was a pattern that arose because my physical world changed, my emotional world changed. And so there is an intelligence here. And the energy of acceptance and and acknowledgement, like, oh, it keeps me safe by what? It helps me avoid this, or, and I'm afraid of this. If I didn't have this pattern, I'd be afraid that.
I think that's really important too, to recognize that sometimes it doesn't make a lot of sense to us now as an adult. Like, I can handle anger. I've processed a ton of anger. Like, I'm fine with anger, but a lot of us formed these patterns when we were very little and we couldn't process them. We didn't have the support or the understanding to make a logically better decision. We didn't have the experience in the world. So if your pattern doesn't make sense to you, imagine that you're a small child overwhelmed and facing things you don't understand. That might give you some context and some compassion for the pattern and the part of you that formed it. Because they don't always make sense. In fact, when they don't make sense, tapping is very effective to release it, because you can kind of go back to that time, do the inner child tapping, like, hi, sweetheart, thank you for coming up with such a brilliant solution. Guess what? Things have changed. Let's look at this together and figure out a better way now. Like, there's a lot we can do when they don't make sense.
Do you want to ask for a volunteer on this one?
Sure, if someone wants to.
Okay.
We love clearing this stuff.
So, if you have a pattern, I'd like a volunteer that's, at this point, you're clear that you have a pattern and you have an idea of how it keeps you safe. Mm-hmm. If you want to volunteer, you can leave a message in the chat or go to the participants window. There should be a participants button below the videos, or on iPhones and Androids, there's a ... and raise your hand. And if nobody volunteers, that's fine. We'll go ahead and tap. And Arlene, I think you said that you didn't have, I'll try here. Arlene, are you there?
I think it was Arlene.
I think she said that she didn't have a microphone on her laptop.
Came back. Yeah, it was Arlene.
Yeah. Thank you for trying there. And we have Evelyn?
Yes.
And would you like your video on?
That's okay. It wasn't on. Do I have to do something to put the video on?
Let me just ask. Let's see if that worked. Did you get a little notice?
The host asked you to start my video. Okay.
There you go.
It's okay.
Okay. Hi, Evelyn. How are you?
Hi. I am loving this.
I'm so glad. When you think of your pattern, what pattern, are you willing to share what pattern that you're noticing that you feel stuck on?
I sure do. I'm going to be 69 this year, and I have a pattern of staying up late, and it's so not healthy for me on mental and physical, and I'm aware of it, and I've been trying to change it.
Yeah.
And I've been failing. I've been progressing a little bit sometimes, but then I fall back into it. I even stay up all night sometimes working.
Oh, okay.
I'm nuts.
No, so there's a pattern that's not working for you. It's not adding to your health and your well-being, and it's probably very frustrating. I always feel very out of control. I feel like I'm not an adult, not a competent human being when I can't change things like that.
Exactly. I've said to myself, you are 68 years old and you're still dealing with this. What is wrong with you?
I can't even put myself to bed right. What is wrong?
Exactly.
So do you have any sense of when you might have decided this was a good thing, like to stay up all night?
I just thought of that a little bit when you said go back into your childhood. I know as a teenager, I did this.
Okay.
I would stay up till way, way late, wait to do my homework till 2 a.m. and, that sort of thing. I don't know really. I can't pinpoint how it's serving me.
Okay. So when you think about, if you can think back to a teenager, were there things you got out of, so I remember staying up late as a teenager because it was the only time I was away from my family and it was quiet. Like it was kind of a safe space. They were all asleep. I got that space. It kind of felt decadent and like I was being bad. And I was kind of like, there wasn't a lot of freedom for me. So it was a way for me to get some freedom and be rebellious in a way that I wouldn't be crushed. What when you think about that staying up, you obviously got something out of it because you did it.
Yeah. My mom said that even as a young child, I never wanted to miss out on anything. So I have like huge interest in everything. So many times I'm up late, surfing the net, looking at emails. You know, I'm a self-help guru kind of person. So that might be part of it. And also when I had my 5 children and life was crazy, I stayed up so that I could have the time to myself, like you talked about.
Yeah. Okay. So that fear of missing out is big.
Yep.
I'm getting the impression you're a very intelligent, curious person.
I guess.
Yes. Was there a lot of resources for you when you were very little to have that curiosity and that intelligence stimulated?
Can you say that last question?
So like when I was little, there wasn't like people didn't understand children needed a lot of like there wasn't a lot of like really fun things that I was excited about around for me. I'm just curious if that was true for you.
I don't know. I mean, there certainly wasn't the internet back there, but I got to go to the library. I did church things. I did, family things. So I feel like I had a lot of stimulation, but not a lot of money to do things like piano lessons or anything like that.
Okay. Can we imagine going back in time? Can you imagine that little girl that was staying up late? She did not want to miss out on anything. She was afraid of missing out on anything.
Okay.
Okay. And could you imagine her in front of you, just like she's just like a little entity energy of you in front of you?
Okay.
And would you ask her if we could do some gentle tapping with her that wouldn't hurt, but she can say yes or no as she likes?
Yes.
Okay. Ask her if she'd like for you to tap on her, or would she like to tap on herself?
That one's a little confusing. I'll be tapping on me. So
right.
Okay. So yeah, she'll tap.
Okay, great. So what I'd like you to do is we're going to go through and tap, and you're just going to do just like you normally do tapping, but you're going to imagine that little energetic entity of you is going to be tapping on herself as we go. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. So karate chop. Hey, sweetheart.
Hey, sweetheart.
Thank you for coming to talk to me.
Thank you for coming to talk to me.
I love you.
I love you.
And I know sometimes I yell at you.
And I know sometimes I yell at you.
I really want to go to bed earlier.
I really want to go to bed earlier.
And you do not want to.
And you don't want to.
You want to see all the things.
You want to see all the things.
And know all the things that are happening.
And know all the things that are happening.
And soak up as much experience as you can.
And soak up as much experience as you can.
And I really admire that about you.
And I really admire that about you.
And maybe we can find a way to work together.
And maybe we can find a way to work together.
Top of that, I'm tired of fighting with you.
I'm tired of fighting with you.
Hey, bro, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Side of the eye, you're really strong.
You are really strong.
Under the eye, you're so determined to not miss out on anything.
You are so determined not to miss out on anything.
Under the nose, and you want to learn everything you can.
And you want to learn everything you can.
Jen, I just really appreciate you.
I just really appreciate you.
Collarbone, you've made my life so rich.
You've made my life so rich.
Under the arm, I can't imagine my life without you.
I can't imagine my life without you.
Top of the head, and maybe when we were little.
And maybe when we were little.
There were a lot less things to engage in.
There were a lot less things to
engage in.
Eyebrow,
but now we have the internet.
But now we have the internet.
Side of the eye, and so much information.
And so much information.
Under the eye, it's really overwhelming sometimes.
It's really overwhelming sometimes.
Under the nose, I wonder if we could work together to choose the things we look at.
I wonder if we could work together to choose the things we look at.
And maybe get a little more sleep so that we can actually enjoy the things we're learning.
And maybe get a little more sleep so we can actually enjoy those things.
Collarbone, there's this really cool thing called body yes and body no.
There's this really cool thing called body yes and body no.
Under the arm, and we could learn that so we can decide what things to do.
And we could learn that so we could decide what things to do.
Top of the head, and sleep is also an experience.
sleep is also a great experience.
And I would like to experience that a little better.
And I would like to experience that a lot better.
Take a nice deep breath. What are you noticing about her right now?
I'm not noticing her, I'm noticing me. I'm noticing huge willingness to let go of this bad pattern.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, I've been willing before, but I'm like almost like on a shift of, hey, this really would be better for me. Like I had the realization, but now I'm feeling it in my body.
That's wonderful. That's really wonderful. I hope that continues. And if something comes up or you feel more resistance, sometimes tapping on an outside being energy like that can give us a lot more leverage, and it lets us stay in the very adult, mature space while identifying, like connecting with that part of us. So if that works for you, imagine inviting her to snuggle up with you when you go to bed, if that works for you.
Imagine her snuggling up with me.
Yeah, it's like, hey, let's go to bed together. Yeah. And that's a fun experience. We're going to snuggle and we're going to get up tomorrow and do all these fun things. We need to be well rested so we can go do them.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tapping. That was great, Evelyn.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Cathy. And you bring up a really important point. We talked on when you've got a block, whether it's a fear, like the fear of missing out. If we have a fear of missing out, it'll drive a lot of things in our lives. If there's an ambivalence, if I have a part of me that wants to do something and a part of me that doesn't, I can be in a pattern that sort of like doesn't go in either direction. And you could do that tapping with the part of you that wants to do this and the part of you that refuses to. And by collaborating with those facets of you, we are really multifaceted. Our brains have different regions. Our body has different needs. Our liver and our amygdala have different system needs.
Yeah, and I'm sorry we can't tap with more people. Like, we're running out of time, but Rick does have the team circle, and that's an amazing place if you're part of it to bring these things up, because both of us love to help people through this stuff. The Body Yes, Body No is very powerful, and can we send out a link to that page to the people that are here or people that signed up for the call? We've done calls on it before. I think I have the video recording we did of it too. I can make sure that gets out.
Since you signed up, I'll put that on the replay page.
Yeah, Rick taught that to me, and I was like, holy crap, that's so good. So I really encourage you, if you haven't gone through that, please do. And if you're not a member of the circle, Rick's circle, I highly recommend it. It means such a big difference in my life. You can sign up at thrivingnow.com/team. It's really affordable, a great place to get
/circle.
Oh, circle. Sorry.
The other one works too.
Okay.
Of course.
Old patterns. That one's not so bad, I guess, because you left it. But yeah, so like if you want some more support on this, I really encourage you. And Jean and David and Simone and some other people run. I think I forget, who am I forgetting? Someone else runs some calls on there too.
Nope, that's that.
Oh, that's okay. I didn't forget anyone. Okay, that's a great way to get some beautiful connection and energy and support. So yeah, if you're not a member, I encourage you to check it out anyway. See if it's a Body Yes, Body No for you.
Yeah, and this is clearly a deep subject. I know that we didn't get into the how do we activate our energy. So I'm going to just make an invitation to you. I know that for me, if I become aware of the fear or something or the trigger for a pattern, like I'm starting to feel this. Cathy suggested, like for the grounding exercises, you print out the sheet at thrivingnow.com/grounding, so you start feeling ungrounded and you have something to turn to. For me, I need a menu. So like if I'm starting to feel that, well, my pattern might be to turn on the television. In order to change that pattern, I need things that include turning on the television on the menu, but they may also include dancing with my guitar. Mm-hmm. May also include putting on a song. May also include lying flat on the floor in a different orientation. or something that moves my brain instead of like up and down. Maybe I need to go horizontal, or like I call it a horizontal break. Something that puts my nervous system in a different place actually changes patterns. Patterns do respond to menu choices, especially ones that start feeling more interesting. And if you have a challenge with coming up with menu patterns, that's the type of thing that a coach can help you with as well.
Yeah, Rick does amazing coaching too, so you can check that out.
Cathy offered a menu of like, oh, it's bedtime. Oh, I'm going to cuddle with my inner child. Or maybe we're going to share something that
bedtime story together or something.
Make up a bedtime story together, or listen to one, or laugh at, an Alexa joke. Anything that starts meeting the emotional needs that we have, the need for laughter and connection and comfort and safety, those things on a menu start making a big difference, because we start establishing in a gentle way a new way of being. So
yeah, I really appreciate everyone who's been here today. It's amazing to connect with you, and I love what you're bringing to the world. It makes me very, very hopeful.
And if you want to reach out to us, support@thrivingnow.com. It comes to both Cathy and I only. So, yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. May you have lots of freedom.